Looking for clarity and confidence when it comes to decision making for your business? You've come to the right place. You're now listening to the Atomic Business Coaching Podcast.
Hey everyone, so I am Adam.
And I'm Tom.
And together we are Atomic Business Coaching,
where our stories are your solutions.
Nailed it, pal.
Hey, yeah. It actually is like what we know what we're doing here.
Sort of. I think this is episode like 5 or 6.
Yep.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, slowly but surely. It's all good, man. It's all good.
So we've done a lot of cool things with like talking about our system, and we talked about change, and we've done a few other episodes. And what I was thinking today is talking about our origin story, and not so much about how me and you met, because we had a little discussion about that, but really the name of the company, Atomic Business Coaching. So for any of you who are watching or listening, my name is Adam and
I'm Tom.
If you put them together, Atom, A-T-O-M. So when we were like playing with names, I like numbers and I like things, and I was like, okay, what if we just use our names as the name of the company? And Atom, I was like, this is perfect. But then when we started really looking into like, what's an atom? Right. So Tom, what's an atom?
It's a core molecule, man. It's what makes everything in life happen.
Right. And it's the smallest possible thing you could actually have. So it's a lot about the details, which is a lot of what we do. Mm-hmm. And then we talk about something that is atomic, right? I mean, when you really consider atomic, it is a component of a larger system.
Yep.
Right? So it's all these atoms, these molecules together, becoming atomic. And then when you talk about an atomic bomb, it's an explosion, right?
Yep.
And I actually had to look it up. So I wrote it down here. The definition of an atomic bomb, right? It says, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it's a rapid release of nuclear energy.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. That is awesome.
Right. So really what Tom and I are doing is we are getting down to the nitty gritty details of who you are, who you want your business to be, why you want it to be that way, when you want it to be that way, where you want to accomplish these things in a very granular, detailed way, which is like an atom. The goal is to then release all that energy out in the world so you could be super successful. So I thought today, or a little bit of origin story, but we could kind of talk about the importance of details. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good. Just before we go there, like the thing that I want to point out too is that we always talk about change being small steps, right? We talk about doing, you talk about doing that 1% more. What's that one more thing that you're going to do today that you didn't do yesterday, right? And when you start to make those small changes and you do those small activities each day, they may be small, but the energy that they release could be life-changing, life-altering, business-altering, and really be nuclear in many ways and be so powerful, right? People always get confused, like that I've got to make these big changes. And the reality is that no, you just have to make the small change, but be detailed in what that small change is and make sure that it's a very specific thing. So I think that's a great place to go is in the details.
Yeah. And exactly what you're saying with doing those small things can make the change. But the more important part about it is doing those small things right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Doing the small things right will make the difference in both your personal and your business success. And that's a lot of what Tom and I do with our clients is just get down to those small things, and doing them right is not necessarily like tactically, how do you do them right? It's more about what's right for you as the human. Right. How do you want to go through this journey of building a business, and why are you leaving your corporate job to go do this?
Right.
Is that little detail the right move for you at the moment? And that's a lot of where Tom's work comes in. He's really looking at the mental side of it, and what are those roadblocks, and are these decisions that you're making, are we getting into the detail, and is it right for you?
Exactly. Because there is such a wealth or overwhelming amount of indecision in that process, right? The people get stuck on that because they don't know what the details are moving forward. They don't have the clarity on what it is they exactly want to do. What is their what is their why, right? And that's what we do together is we bring that out to understand so that we can provide the details. Because once you have an idea of the direction you're headed and you start to make decisions, it's in the details that it takes this shape and that it really does explode. And without that bigger vision, right? It's creating that vision of what you want your life to look like. And we help you to create the puzzle pieces that create that larger picture. That's ultimately what we're doing. And each of those puzzle pieces, when you look at the puzzle piece, you see such detail. But when you see it come together as the whole picture, you can see the whole vision for it. And that's really the process that we take people through. And that's in getting to that detail.
Yeah. And in that is you're building a sense of purpose and meaning in your life and in your business, right? And what that means is now you're constantly challenging yourself over and over and over to become better each and every time. But the success really only comes from the times of doing those small little things, right? And it's doing those little things over and over and consistently. And yes, you will have meaning, but you have to actually go through and do the actions, right? It's those tiny little details that you're moving forward with each and every day over and over that may be monotonous, that will in the long run, okay, bring you the success and will make your life have that purpose and that meaning. And when you reflect back, and we always talk about the why in many different ways, but like, why are you really doing this? And it's because it's purposeful, and it's because it had a meaning to you when you originally started it. Most people don't start a business unless they have some sort of a passion for that. It's a wonderful starting point, right? But those little details, you have to focus on the things that matter in order to move forward.
Right. And if once you've clarified that and you figured that out, the key is to do it, right? Is to take that action, is to keep moving forward. Remember, forward is always the pace. We want to keep moving forward. And sometimes knowing the detail of an action step and having that information and saying, okay, how do I act upon this? And how do I do this? As long as you know what it is that needs to be done, you can keep moving. That's got to be your internal motivation to at least do that one thing the next day, to keep going and not to get stuck in the overwhelm of that, right? Because people, right, when you have so many things to do and you don't have a focus on the details of what's the most important thing to do, you become overwhelmed and you think this list is just this huge thing, when in reality, it's probably not. There's probably only 3 or 4 priorities on that list. And the key is it's the priority is in the detail, right? In the detail of the experience, the detail of the action. That's where the priority is going to sit. And you're going to realize that the more detailed you are, because if you have these vague details, if you have these vague statements, if you have these vague to-dos, these vague actions, like any vague goal, you're not going to achieve that goal because it's not specific enough. It's not detailed enough. And the detail is what gives you the sense of priority. And that's what really is going to move you forward is knowing what your priorities are. Because when you know what your priorities are, then there's a whole slew of things you can create, especially your boundaries to get those things done, right? And that's that personal boundary piece that comes into play once you know your priorities, that you now know what you have to do. So now you know what you have to put aside so that you can do that.
Yeah. It's skill. The detail part of it is it's a skill that you're learning. Like you said, focus, right? So that's one of the skills. When you pay attention to the details, you are consistently building these skills over and over. And focus is one of the main ones. So if you're paying attention to something that's very, very small, right, you have to be focused on it, right? Think about if you're looking at an image and you have to look at the little tiny piece of it. You have to focus on that, correct?
Yes.
If you don't, you need glasses, right? And we become your glasses, basically. But the skills that you're gaining are focus with details, organization. You have a observation of what's going on. You're critically analyzing these things, and you start to have more of a consciousness of these details. And this is what we found in our work, is that when we are paying attention to these details with you and we are asking very relevant questions to get answers to these details, the byproduct of all of it is the work that we do, and that is awareness. right? Awareness is where we are driving all of these things. Okay. And that brings the purpose. And for you to have an awareness of what you actually are trying to accomplish in those details will change your life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because, awareness, it's a great point, because the more you become aware of something, the more action you can take around that thing. And you can either make it better, or you can figure out ways to mitigate it if it's an obstacle or something that's getting in the way. But awareness, how do you create awareness, right? People struggle with how do I create an awareness? And the thing that I always say to people is ask more questions. Right? I mean, ask more questions. 80% of our language should be questions. Only 20% should be these blatant statements, these blunt statements, these cold statements, whatever. But everything else is in the questioning, is remaining curious. Because the more curious, right? When you think of a 2-year-old always asks, why? Because they want to understand, and they want to have that full awareness of how something operates. Do you ever watch a kid take apart something and they're like so into it, and it's like, and then they figure out how it goes back together? It's because they are focusing on the details, and they're staying in, remaining curious in the details. And that's the other big piece, is when you have details, ask more questions, remain curious, and you'll have more detail, and you'll be that much laser focused. And that laser focus is going to propel you to a nuclear explosion. That's going to, because there's so many things that have to happen for that intensity to happen. And the more curious you are at the beginning, you're building on that intensity to get to that ultimate epiphany, or that ultimate explosion.
Yeah. It's beautifully put, man. I mean, that awareness it's kind of a focus, right? Mm-hmm. It is, again, a focus on the actions that you're taking, right?
Right.
And you can either see, are those actions, what's the outcome of those actions, right? Or what's the outcome of your focus at the moment, and your thoughts that you're going through, and the emotions that you're going through? And do they really align with the standards of what you're trying to accomplish moving forward, right? Whether that be in your business or your personal life or your self-care, that's where the self-awareness comes in, and it's the focus on the details, right? It's kind of almost like a vicious cycle, but it doesn't need to be vicious. It can be an upward spiral, right? This can help you to bring you to the place you want to do it, but it also can go the other way. It can be a downward spiral into depression, and for business, quitting and saying, I can't do this, and having imposter syndrome and all of these things. So it's the most important part of building your business, is getting that granular detail at an atomic level almost, and becoming aware on the actions you're about to take.
Right. You talk about a downward spiral, and a lot of that downward spiral comes from the getting caught up in the emotions of the situation. And when emotions take away our ability to focus on what is really truth. The emotions, I always tell people, like, when you're having a difficult conversation, or you're struggling with, an emotional state, and you don't want to communicate that emotional state, just stick to the facts, right? And that's what the details have to become. The details have to be the facts of the situation, so that you can distract from the emotion. Because if you remove the emotion, you're going to be less inclined to go down that spiral, right? You want the emotion, the good emotion, the high, the adrenaline, the dopamine, all of those things that are kicking in as you build momentum. Those are the things that are going to help you to be laser focused, because you're seeing that, you're putting everything together and things are working. But if you go in that downward spiral, you're losing that adrenaline, you're losing that dopamine, you're losing that whole stimulation, and you're letting the emotion take over. And emotion is what distracts us from our focus the most. And that's why when we're overwhelmed, we lose the details, right? Do you ever been in an emotional state? You don't hear everything, like you're in an argument, or you're feeling sad about something, and you just don't hear all the detail. You only hear what you want to hear. Well, it's the same thing when we start to go down that spiral. We start to ignore the details that we do have, and we get caught up in the emotion, and that takes us away from it all.
Yeah, hearing what you want to hear, and, what you said is you want to go back to the facts, because when you're self-aware, or when you're very aware of what needs to be done in your business, and you're paying attention to the details, what it allows you to do is eliminate all the assumptions and bias, right?
Yep.
You completely get away from other people, and you have the ability to now have different perspectives on things through the fact. And you can measure the consequences of certain actions, right? And with an internal voice, because you are aware with that, and you know what you're doing because you've figured out the detail of it, and this is supposed to be the byproduct of that action. And if it wasn't, you don't have to assume things. You can actually sit down and look at it in a more detailed manner. And that's really how you make progress, right? We don't magically, ascend to this incredible success one day. It's about failing. You fail more often than you do succeed in any business. The way that you become great is by taking those failures and then figuring out what went right, what went wrong, and then how do I fix it? Right. Things that went wrong, like, okay, how do I eliminate them or delegate them or find another place for it? The things that went right, how do I enhance them and do more of that? And then you continually succeed. But it's about constantly going back to, like Tom said, that fact and those details and focusing on it to then progress forward. Right.
And something that I think is really important to communicate here is that we're not saying to make things more complicated with details, right? We're saying to be as specific, to keep it as simple as possible in the detail so that you can take the action. Because if you overcomplicate something, that's when distraction is going to happen. That's when emotion and frustration is going to kick in. Right? We always say when you're struggling with something, and if you're struggling to find what the next step is that go back to the basics, go back to the simple, realign what is simple. And if you've overcomplicated something, pull that out. Don't let that be in there, because detail is not necessarily a level of complication. And I think that's something important to understand, because we're not saying to make it complicated. We're not saying to do that. What we're saying is be as finite and as specific and as simple as possible, because when you go back and you reevaluate, like you just said, Adam, is, what went wrong or what didn't work or what was the pain point here, 9 times out of 10 is because you made it too complicated. 9 times out of 10, you tried to do more in that instance than you should have done in that instance. And you made it way much more complicated than it needed to be.
Well, that goes back to the name, an atom, right? It's simple.
Yep.
It is an extremely small amount of something. Yeah. It is the single smallest thing in our entire universe that you can get down to. So it has to be simple. And that's why we want to make this atomic. Putting all those simple things together gives you that nuclear energy that you can explode and make something tremendous.
Absolutely. It's insane.
It's just funny how it happens, right?
Yeah. We all started from one little thing, and look at what comes out of it. And that's what is so beautiful about what we get to do with our clients every single week, every single opportunity that we have to see them succeed, is watching that explosion taking place. Like, you could see it percolating, right? Yeah. That's the funnest part, right? I always love when we get to like the middle of the process that we're going through, and you start to see these light bulbs going off here and there, and because it's percolating, it's starting to all come together. It's all starting to, and then it's just going to, and explode. And that's what's beautiful about it. It's an awesome process to be a witness to, but also to be so engaged with. And when your client wins and we see our clients win, we feel really good about the work that we've been able to do.
It is a little like selfish, because
it is like,
it's coming. And as you're saying, we're watching it, and we'll even have Tom and I will meet each week about our clients, and we'll have a discussion on them, and we're like, this is about to happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we say, like, this guy's about to do this thing, or this girl, she's that close. It just has to be that one itty bitty thing.
Yep.
It happens, and it's like, we're like little kids.
Yep. It's like we're pulling, we can see the levers. Like, if we just tweak it a little bit, if it tweaks this way, it's going to go this way. If it doesn't tweak, it's going to go a whole other direction. But that's the thing. But that's like, and listen, as I'm a geek, right? I'm a healthcare provider by training. I'm a PA by training. And, I think of the chemistry behind it. And if you just change one part of a formula, everything changes, right? And that's what it's this little thing that changes. It's a little atom. It's an addition the oxygen that changes it from carbon dioxide to carbon trioxide or whatever it is, not even a real thing, but you know what I mean? Like it just changes to bicarbonate. That's the difference, right? You're adding things, and it's these little things. And if it comes together, it could either go south or it could be a huge explosion. And it's so volatile. And it's important to recognize that if we don't keep it simple and we don't keep it detailed, we're gonna create a mess that we didn't intend to create in the beginning.
Yep. And it's all about what you want. And that's where this comes down to. The reason that we have the conversations and try to get to the detail, it's not like here's the system or the process or the procedures. It has nothing to do with that. It's getting down to the root of why are you trying to accomplish this? And does this make sense for you? So we can get you down that path faster, doing things the right way and staying focused and being aware. And that's really, it's been an amazing journey so far in the short time we've spent doing it to help our clients do that. And for me and you to have so much fun. It's extremely rewarding as a coach to watch successes and to get to work with a great person like you, Tom. It's incredible, man. I love it.
Yeah, we have a great time. It's fun. And I hope people can see how you and I we just love being with each other, spending time with each other, and we could talk forever. And it really is, when you're doing something with someone who sees the way you see it and sees the vision, but also brings a fresh perspective, it's incredible the things that you can accomplish. And we always say collaboration is better than competition. Right? It's about collaborating. It's about working together. And that's what we encourage our people to do too, right? Create that support system around you and make sure you have all of those collaborators so that you can be successful. But it's been a fun journey so far, man. I love working with you. It's awesome.
All right. So I think that's a good place to stop today.
Absolutely.
I would ask, we haven't asked this yet. So maybe anyone who's listening or has listened to a few of these, maybe you could put in the comments below if you're on one of the applications that allows you to do that, or you can always message us on Instagram at Atomic Business Coaching. Maybe let us know some of the things that you'd like to hear about. It's great for us to talk about our experiences and our stories or your solutions. But we'd maybe love to hear about some things that you'd like us to discuss, because I'm sure we've either experienced it or we've helped someone go through that. And if not, maybe we'll even ask you to come on with us and we can hear that from you and have a kind of a discussion amongst the three of us about it. So with that, we'll see you next time.
See you later.